Hello everyone, Void here coming back at you all with another top 10 Commander video. This time we're going over what I believe are the 10 best cards to ever come from a Zendikar set. So the Zendikar sets are obviously the original Zendikar, World Wake, Rise of the Eldrazi, Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatch, and the most recent Zendikar Rising. The point of this is very similar to making a Ravnica themed list. It's just really ranking the most powerful cards to come from the plane. Also, yeah, I have to acknowledge there are some cards that feature characters, artifacts, stuff from the plane of Zendikar, but it's from a core set, the card itself, or it's from a commander product, the card itself didn't come from Zendikar, or a Zendikar set. So if it has the set symbol of any of those that I mentioned, it qualifies for the video. So starting it off here with number 10, this is something that might be a bit premature. Don't know how powerful it is in Commander yet. I thought it was quite possibly the best card out of the whole set for Zendikar Rising. Lithoform Engine, I think the versatility, put it on an artifact, that's usually a good sign that it's going to see some consistent Commander play. I could be wrong though. Didn't put it any higher because guess what? Zendikar has some pretty powerful stuff. Especially the first 3 sets, holy cow, it's gonna get pretty powerful. But I just think this is a fantastic card. I mean, whatever copy strategy you have. If you're playing a Spell Slinger, it could work. If you're playing a token deck, it could work. Great variety. Number 9, we have All Is Dust. This is easily one of the best board wipes in the Commander format, so it was destined to be in my top 10. It's just so powerful. Each player has to sacrifice all of their colored permanents. While it is situational, it's not always a big problem solver. If your opponents have artifacts that are doing all the damage, then you're kind of screwed, but for the most part, the deck you have this in, it's going to be able to work around that. It's either not going to be dependent on colored permanents, or it's just going to be a colorless deck altogether. Like you could be playing an Eldrazi as your commander, then something like this is the best card you could play. Again, it's pretty situational, which is why I don't have it higher, but in many cases this could be a one-sided board wipe. And then number 8 is Basilisk Collar. Basilisk Collar is easily one of the best equipment spells in the format, because there are so many scenarios in which your commander or some creature you have is capable of dealing damage with an activated ability, but the damage isn't enough to kill the creature outright, so you equip something that can give it Death Touch. Basilisk Collar has consistently been the equipment that has the cheapest equip cost to do this, while also offering you lifelinks, so if you need to gain life, it's also a decent option. It's always been one of the more sought after ones too, only getting reprinted in more recent sets. But for a while there, it was always one of those cards that people needed for some kind of combo, some sort of interaction with their creatures. Just a fun card though. Like if you get those combos to work, you can just start pinging away creatures. And also, you get the lifelink too. Number 7 is Avenger of Zendikar. You can kind of ignore the landfall here, because I just feel like most of the decks that play Avenger of Zendikar don't play it for the landfall at all. Most of the time, you're okay with just getting those creatures and having normal land plays. You don't need to have those crazy, here's 4 or 5 counters on each of my plants. You don't need any of those plays. Sometimes you just need the bodies. And Avenger of Zendikar in green, no matter what kind of deck you're playing, if you want to go wide, Avenger of Zendikar has always been that creature. It's powerful in blink decks, so if you played something like Rune of the Hidden Realm, you could take advantage of the ETB, get even more plants. And then yes, of course, if you want to go for landfall, why not take advantage of that wonderful landfall trigger and make your tokens even bigger? It also sees play in elemental decks because it's an elemental itself. Just a very versatile creature, and it gives you exactly what you want in Commander. It gives you bodies, and for 7 mana, you want something like that. Number 6 is Kozilek the Great Distortion. Now we get to the big threats of the Zendikar plane. You probably saw this coming. We're going to start talking about Eldrazi and Kozilek. While it's lower on my list in relation to the other Eldrazi, don't take that as I think it's a bad card compared to them. I just think that the fact that it's not indestructible, it doesn't have an Annihilator ability, kind of holds it back just a little bit. I like that it can refill your hand. That's always been a good thing about Kozilek. And you of course have the ability to counterspell without really having to pay any mana. You just have to discard a card with the same converted mana cost. If we're talking about commander options, I think this version of Kozilek might just be the best commander option if you're going for a colorless deck. But outside of that, I think in terms of getting exactly what you need, I think in Commander games, you have to look at what's going to shut down your opponents, and I don't think Kozilek quite does that in a multiplayer game to the degree that I think the other Eldrazi do. Number 5 is Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Just a little bit better than Kozilek, I think. You know, the Indestructible works in its favor. It's lower than the other Eldrazi because it doesn't have an Annihilator trigger. It just has your opponent exile the top 20 cards of their deck, which is an inconvenience, but it's far from a knockout punch like the older Annihilator keyword was. However, I think its casting trigger is quite possibly the best casting trigger of the Eldrazi. You get to exile 2 target permanents. The original Ulamog only destroyed 1 permanent. So I think if you're looking for colorless removal even, you could go for Ulamog. I just think that's way too good to pass up on if you are going to go for an Eldrazi. It doesn't have Annihilator. Again, its attack trigger is much worse. But I think as a creature, it's just going to get the job done. It is one of the best problem solvers you can play. And then number 4, I'm not going to choose. Don't make me do that. Both Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, and Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. I think they're both pretty much on the same level. I think between drawing 4 cards and destroying a permanent, it's very difficult for me to say one is better than the other. Yes, Ulamog is still indestructible this time, so he might be a better creature this time too. I think they're both pretty much on the same level though. They both have Annihilator. That's always been crazy. I mean, Emrakul, if it was illegal, obviously would be probably the best card you could play in Commander. But between the playable Eldrazi that you can play in the format, it's hard for me to say which is better, because again, it is situational, and I think at the end of the day, because they both offer you Annihilator, it just makes them shut down options, you know? If you want to focus an opponent out of the game, you just keep attacking them, they keep having to sacrifice resources until they have nothing left, and they're absorbing blows from your Eldrazi. It was pretty difficult, but I think it's fair just to have them share the same spot at number 4. Now you're asking, well, what could be better than Eldrazi? Because 3, 2, and 1 are not going to be Eldrazi. Number 3, we have Stoneforge Mystic. Yes, something I would say is better than an Eldrazi, a creature that can tutor up an equipment and then cheat it into play. I think Stoneforge Mystic, everybody knows, has been one of the most powerful cards to come out of Worldwake and the Zendikar block altogether. I don't know if I would say it sees play everywhere in equipment decks, but I would say if you can afford it, if you can get one, there's no reason why the hell you wouldn't play it. Tutors, I shouldn't have to really explain why they're powerful in a singleton format where you don't always know what you're going to get on your next draw. That's even worse in a 99 card deck compared to 60 card. So you could get a sword if you need protection from a certain creature you need to swing in uncontested. You could get protection, you could get lightning greaves. If you need to get some more card draw, you could always get skull clamp. You could get a shadow spear if you need to solve problems. Again, because you have tutoring, you can pretty much solve whatever problem you need to solve. It just makes it a little bit better than a lot of these other cards on the list. It's just pretty crazy. You could, of course, get a Basilisk Collar. Just a fantastic little core creature. You know, is always putting in its work. And then number 2 is probably one of my favorite cards, and quite frankly, I didn't really like Battle for Zendikar, but Zulaport Cutthroat. Holy cow! We're talking about one of the most played black cards now in Commander. It's like a Blood Artist, but only for your creatures. However, each opponent's going to lose a life every single time one of your creatures dies, making it arguably better in a multiplayer game. We could have this discussion all day about, is it Zulaport Cutthroat or Blood Artist, in the same way that we could have that discussion about Kozilek and Ulamog. At the end of the day, it's putting in its work. It's one of the scariest cards in black that you can play because it's so easy to win with combos as well. You could have an infinite creature combo where you can constantly sack, create more creatures, and then suddenly all of your opponents are dead. All of this for just a 2-mana uncommon from a set that not a lot of people liked. I think it's been pretty good. Alright, before I get to number 1, I'm going to go over some honorable mentions. We have the fetch lands. I didn't put them on here because, well, I think everybody knows they're good, but it's only as good as just getting the land that you need, the mana that you need. You're not ramping, you're not doing anything super crazy, but I can't go this whole video without mentioning them. There was also a pretty decent land cycle, starting with Battle for Zendikar that was 2 different land types, so you could search them up with a fetch land too. We of course have the many Omnaths. 3 of them from the Zendikar sets. There was an Omnath that came out in last year's core set. I guess they just assumed we really like Omnath. I think all of them are fantastic commander options, honestly, if you want to go with any of these. Hard to really beat the mana advantage that you get in these decks. You are going to be playing more of a land-centric deck. Pretty cool cards. We have General Tazri. If you want to play allies, this for a long time was one of the cool things about Zendikar. Outside of the Eldrazi was that you had the allies. You could, of course, make ally tribal. I'm more drawn to the food chain deck that you can play with her. I think that's pretty fun. It's a little bit more competitive, a little bit more spicy. And then we have Eldrazi Monument because you need more ways to win. It's easily one of those cards that once you play it, it's so hard for your opponents to overcome. Indestructible flying creatures. They're also getting +1/+1. Because this is a colorless artifact, you could throw it into just about any deck. It's that good. Alrighty everyone, so number 1, this is a card I think is better than all the Eldrazi. If you have to ask me what I value more in Commander, the big plays are the ones that give you more consistency. I'm going for Oracle of Moldiah because you get more land drops and you get to look at the top card of your library so that you're not just playing lands that you already have in your hand, you're giving yourself the ability to play lands off the top of your deck so you don't have to draw into them, which is crazy good. Because you can look at the top card of your library, it makes it easier for other top deck manipulation. Let's say you have some kind of trick where you can play the top card of your deck, or even if you have a fetch land and you look at the top card of your deck, it's yet another land that you can't play, but you don't want to draw into it. Just crack a fetch land or an Evolving Wilds, shuffle your deck until the top card of your library is something that you want to draw into. It's very similar to what I was talking about with Basilisk Collar. There are just some cards that need reprints badly, and you're scratching your head as to why this one went so long without a reprint, but it got one in Jumpstart, so that's pretty cool. Fantastic card. I mean, yes, it's green. It's not a powerful, colorless Eldrazi, but I think it just puts in way more work compared to them. I think over the course of a game, when you have like 30 lands and your opponents don't really have much to match you with, you can thank your Oracle of Moldiah. It's just crazy that you get both for just a 4-mana creature. But anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about all of the Zendikar sets. We've been on a wild journey. Believe it or not, I think we're honestly at a better place now with Zendikar Rising. I think moving away from the Eldrazi, moving away from the allies, it really allows this set to offer more to more decks. So you get something like a Lithiform engine, you get some more versatility, and you're not just looking through the bulk rares and thinking, wow, everything here is so narrow and strategy specific that it makes it hard to fit it into any newer decks that you make. And that was the problem that I think a lot of people had with Battle for Zendikar, Oath of the Gatewatch. You had all this Eldrazi vomit over everything, and it just made it hard to do anything new. But anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Void here signing off. See you all next time.